Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Gimel Amud Beis. Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. 4 lines from the bottom. Let us review what we learned until now. The Mishnah taught us that the Kohen Gadol is to be sequestered 7 days before Yom HaKippurim. The Gemara brings the Mishnah in Para that in addition, the Kohen who is Soref, the Para Aduma, also must be sequestered 7 days before that procedure. The Gemara then explains where is the source for these 2 places, to which the Gemara brings a pasuk. The pasuk states, Kasher osa b'yom hazeh, just as it was done on this day, meaning the day of the 8th day of Miluim. The psukim say that Aaron and his Banav were sequestered 7 days before that in the Ohel Moed, before the 8th day of the Miluim, their avodas hakorbanos. The pasuk goes on to say, Tziva Hashem la'asois lechaper aleichem, to which Rabbi Yochanan explains, Tziva Hashem la'asois is a reference to the Para Aduma, and lechaper aleichem is a reference to the Kohen Gadol before Yom HaKippurim. The Gemara challenges, how do we know that we learn out Yom HaKippurim from Miluim? Perhaps we're learning other things that are mechaper, and that's what requires sequestering. To which the Gemara suggests maybe korbanos, when the Kohen affects a kapara for the Yachid, maybe he requires 7 days of sequestering, as it does Daida Miluim, and not to learn out to the Yom HaKippurim. To which the Gemara rejects and says that can't be, because korbanos is all of the time, Miluim is only one designated time. The Gemara says, okay, so let's learn out that the korbanos of the regalim is learned out from the Miluim. The Gemara says also not, because when it comes to Miluim, it's 7 days before the Miluim that the Kohanim were separated, before 1 day of the korbanos. Over here, when it comes to regalim, before Sukkot and Pesach, it would be 7 days of separating before 7 days of the Chag of Pesach, or the Chag of Sukkot. Then the Gemara suggests, okay, what about Shmini Atzeres? That's only 1 day. The Gemara says also that can't be, because the 7 days of Miluim before the 8th day was 7 days of Chol before the 8th day of Miluim. Whereas over here it would be 7 days of Kedusha before the Shmini Atzeres. So that can't be it as well. Then the Gemara said, what about the regel of Shavuos, Atzeres? That's a 1 day Yom Tif, and therefore the korbanos that take place there should also require sequestering 7 days before that. To which the Gemara says, those are 2 different korbanos than they are by the Miluim. And therefore, at this point, the Gemara is staying with the limud that we do learn out Yom HaKippurim requires the Kohen Gadol to separate 7 days beforehand, as we learn out from Miluim. Says the Gemara, Ve'ema Rosh Hashanah, and asks the Gemara, so let's say Rosh Hashanah, the korbanos that are done on Rosh Hashanah, that should require those Kohanim to then sequester 7 days before that. The Prisha Shiva Liyom Echadhu, because it will be 7 days of separation before the day of Rosh Hashanah. And again, Rosh Hashanah is only 1 day, and Rosh Hashanah doesn't have any days of Kedusha before that, so it's a similar limud from Miluim. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yabohu, Danin par ve'ayil shaloi, mi par ve'ayil shaloi. We learn out the par and the ayil that belongs to the Kohen, namely the Kohen Gadol. We learn that out from the par and the ayil that belongs, meaning to say that was from the own funds of Aaron HaKohen. And therefore that would be the limud from Miluim. La'apuke atzeres v'Rosh Hashanah ditzibur ninhu, to exclude Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah, because that par and ayil come from the tzibur. The Gemara says, Hanicha lemanda omar kach lecha mishelcha. That's very well according to the opinion that says kach lecha in regards to the Miluim. When Hashem says that Aaron should take for yourself an egel ben bakar lechatas va'ayil la'oilot mimim v'hakri lifnei Hashem, so then indeed that is going to be belonging to Aaron. Kach lecha means from you, from your own funds. We're on Gimel Amud Aleph at the top, Amud Beis at the top. The asay lecha is mishelcha, and when it says asay lecha, it means it is belonging to you. So then, that's very well. Then we can only learn miluim, that since miluim belongs to you, so too Yom Kippur belongs to the Kohen Gadol's funds. El Laman Damer Mishel Tzibur Ma'ikal Meimar. But if you learn that indeed Kach Lecha does not refer to the Kohen Gadol's funds, but rather it's from the Tzibur, so then you could learn out indeed from miluim to the other ones, like for Rosh Hashanah, instead of Yom Kippurim. The Tanya, the Gemara proves that there's another man Omar. It says, Kach lecha, in regards to the samim of the spices, take for yourself mishelcha, from your own. Ve'aseh lecha, and make for yourself chatzois rois mishelcha, from your own funds. V'yichoi lecha, and you shall take the shemen, they shall take for you the shemen. That's referring to Mishel Tzibur. That's the Tanakamo, the Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonasan Oimer, Bein Kach Lecha, Bein V'yichu Elecha, Mishel Tzibur. Even Kach Lecha refers to the Tzibur. So therefore, we have a Manda Omar that says that Kach Lecha is from the Tzibur. Why can't we learn at Rosh Hashanah from Miluim instead of Yom Kippurim from Miluim? Umat Talmud Loimar Kach Lecha. So why does it say Kach Lecha? If indeed it doesn't mean Mishelcha, it means from the Tzibur. Kavayachal Mishelcha ani roitze yoyse Mishelahem. It's as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I prefer it to come from your own, as if it's coming from your own, than from the Tzibur. But indeed it belongs from the Tzibur. It's as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that. If we could say that he's saying that, as if he prefers that over the Klal Yisrael's. Abba Chanan Omar Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Kasuv Oimer Echad Oimer V'asisa Lecha Aaron 8. There's a continue of the question. It says in the pasuk that you shall make an Aaron made out of 8. Because of Acher Oimer V'osu Aaron Atzei Shitim. And another pasuk in regards to the Aaron says they made the Aaron of Atzei Shitim. How do these two things go together? On the one hand it says Asisa Lecha. The other one says V'osu. Is it you doing it or is it them doing it? Explains Rav Chanan, Abba Chanan, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, HaKetzat, Kan bizman she'Yisrael oisin ritzon shel makom, Kan bizman she'ein oisin ritzon shel makom. The first verse that's Vasisa Lecha is when they're doing the Ratzon of Hashem. Therefore, then Misyach is back to Klal Yisrael directly. However, when it says V'osu, then it's when they didn't do the Ratzon of Hashem. So we're left with the question, indeed, there's a man Omar who says it's from the Tzibur. So why can't we learn out from Miluim to Rosh Hashanah that before the Avoid of Rosh Hashanah, it's required 7 days of sequester, instead of learning out Yom Kippurim from Miluim? Answers the Gemara, Ad kan lo pligi ela bekichois da'alma ve'asiyos da'alma. Until now, they're only arguing about the kichois and the asiyos, the takings and the you shall make in general, the ba'alma. Kichois da'alma kach lecha samim. When it talks about you shall take lecha samim, spices. Asiyos da'alma asay lecha shtei chatzoitzrois chesef. You shall make for yourself the 2 chatzoitzrois, trumpets of kesef, of silver. That's in regards to in general. Aval hanoch, but over here in regards to the miluim, as well as regards to the Yom Kippurim, there it specifies that's talking about the individual. Aval hanoch perusha komefarish the mishel chohu. It explains that it's belonging to you. It explains miluim by miluim. It states we see ksiv. It says ve'el b'nei Yisrael tidaber leimor kechu si'ir izim lechatas. One pasuk says that you shall speak to Bnei Yisrael and you shall say take the seir izim for a chatos. Vayomer el Aaron kach lecha egel ben baka lechadas. Yet the pasuk specifies and says, say to Aaron, take for yourself. Why does it have to repeat that? It must mean that this belongs to from the funds of Aaron. Lamali shma mina kach lecha mishel chohu. That's in regards to miluim. So we know that miluim is from the funds of the Kohanim. B'Yom Kippurim michti. Let's see by Yom Kippurim. Ksiv, it says also in one pasuk, B'zois yavoy Aaron el HaKodesh bepar ben bakar lechatos. In this, Aaron will come to the kodesh with a par ben bakar for a korban chatos. Ume'ez adas b'nei Yisrael yikach shnei sirei izim lechatos. Right afterwards, the next pasuk says, and from the das b'nei Yisrael he shall take shnei sirei izim lechatos. V'hikriv es par hachatos asher loy, and emphasize that is his. Why does it mefaresh that it's belonging, that it's his? Must be that it comes from the funds of the Kohen Gadol. Lamali shmamina hai loy mishaloyhu. So in Yom Kippurim also we find that the korbanos of the par and the ayil are coming from the funds of the Kohen, just as it does from the Miluim, and therefore we learn out from the Miluim. Just as by Miluim there's 7 days of separation by the Kohanim who are doing the avodah, so too it's 7 days of separation by the Kohen Gadol who must do the avodah on Yom Kippurim. Rav Ashi Omar, Rav Ashi has another answer, explanation. Danin par lechatos v'ayil le'oilo, mi par lechatos v'ayil le'oilo. We learn out from Miluim, which is a par lechatos and ayil le'oilo. So too there, Yom Kippurim is a par lechatos and ayil le'oilo. La'apuke Rosh Hashanah v'atzeres, the travaihu oilois ninu. In both cases, the par and the ayil are both korbanos of oilo, and therefore it's not going to be a good limud from Miluim. Ravina Omar, Ravina says another alternative answer. Danin avoida b'kohen gadol me'avoida b'kohen gadol. We learn out the avoida of the kohen gadol, which was from Miluim, that was Aaron HaKohen, to the kohen gadol's avoida of Yom Kippurim. La'apuke kulu kushyosan, the lav avoida b'kohen gadol, which excludes all of the prior questions that are all speaking about just a kohen and not a kohen gadol. V'ikeda amrei. There are those that say a different version of Ravina. Omar Ravina danin avoida techila mi avoida techila. We make a limud of miluim that is avoida techila to Yom Kippurim, which is avoida techila. La puke hani lav techila ninu, to exclude these. That means Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah, which are not avoida techila. Asking him, my techila, what is meant by techila, avoida techila, that we find by miluim, which we also find by Yom Kippurim? If you're going to say it's techila, that it's the Kohen Gadol doing it techila, it's the first time that he's doing the avodah in the outer mizbeach by the miluim, and it's the first time that the Kohen Gadol is doing the avodah rather in the miluim, and the first time that the Kohen Gadol is doing the avodah in Yom Kippurim after the Mishkan was built. Then ela avoida tchila b'makom ma avoida tchila b'makom. I'm sorry. The Gemara says ilema tchila b'kohen gadol hainu kamaisa. The Gemara asks, if that's what you're going to say it means, then that's the same thing that Ravina already said in the first explanation. We're not adding anything because ultimately we're saying that it's the avoida of the kohen gadol. By saying it's his first avoida really means the same thing, that the kohen gadol is doing the avoida. So that would anyways exclude Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah when the Kohen Gadol is not doing the avodah. Elo avodah techila b'makom. Rather, the limud is from Miluim that it's the first time that Aaron and his sons did the avodah in the outer base, outer mizbeach in the Mishkan. It was the first time it was inaugurated for them to do the karbanos on the 8th day of the Miluim. So too, the very first time that the Kohen Gadol enters the Kodesh Kadoshim on Yom Kippurim. And therefore we learn out Yom Kippurim from Miluim. Gemara says, Ki also Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael back to Bavel, Omar Rabbi Yochanan Masni Chada. He said that Rabbi Yochanan taught one, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Masni Tarti, and Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi taught two. Rabbi Yochanan Masni Chada. Rabbi Yochanan, he taught one. La'asois lechaper. It says in the pasuk La'asois lechaper, in the pasuk that we had brought before, and in that pasuk he learns that they both are teaching me one thing. Eilu Maaseh Yom Kippurim, that by the Yom Kippurim the Kohen Gadol must separate himself 7 days before the avodah of Yom Kippurim. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Masni Tarti. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he taught two from this pasuk. La'asois is kisimi eilu Maaseh para, that the Kohen who served the para aduma must separate 7 days before. Lechaper eilu Maaseh Yom HaKippurim. The word lechaper teaches me a second thing, that the Kohen Gadol must separate 7 days before Yom Kippurim. Rabbi Yochanan Masni Chada asked the Gemara, how could that be that Rabbi Yochanan, he taught only one? Our Mishnah teaches that the Kohen Gadol separates himself, he gets separated 7 days before the Avoid of Yom Kippurim. The Shivas Yom Kodim Sreifa Parah, and another Mishnah in the third parak of Parah teaches us that the Kohen HaSarif, we separate him 7 days before his procedure of the Sreifas HaParah. So how could it be that you only taught one, that's only by Yom Kippurim? Gemara says, Maila Ba'alma, because Rabbi Yochanan is saying it's only a Maila to separate, that the Kohen HaSarif should separate 7 days before, but it's not a requirement. So too, when it comes to Yom Kippurim, so it's a Maila Ba'alma. In other words, by the Parah Aduma, since the Parah Aduma, we were, in a certain sense, showing the Tzedukim that they are wrong. That when it says it's the Ish Toher, that he has to be Toher, it's enough that he is Tevul Yoim. We don't have to wait till Herev Shemesh. So we also go through different types of Chumrois to be Shomer on the Tahara. Like we said before on Beis Amud Aleph, that we make sure that all of the Kelim do not Mekabel Tuma. That's why he's putting a lishkas called the Beis HaEvan. So the Gemara says, "V'ho amar Yirmiyahu bar Chilkiya amar Chasiya bar Idi bar Yochanan." That Rabbi Yochanan himself said, "Kasher osa bayim hazeh tziva Hashem la'asois lechaper aleichem." That pasuk that we brought from Miluim that says, just as the Miluim was done this day, Hashem commands you to do and to atone for you. And he explains, Rabbi Yochanan, La'asois, we learn from here the comparison to Miluim, Elu Maise Parah, that a Parah by the Kohen who's Soif, the Parah has to be separated 7 days before, just as by Miluim. Lechaper teaches us, Elu Maise Yom Kippurim. These are the days of Yom Kippurim, teaching me that by Yom Kippurim, 7 days before, the Kohen Gadol has to separate also. So we see that Rabbi Yochanan learns both things from this pasuk, teaching us in both cases, like Miluim, they have to be separated. So how can you say that he only taught one? Answers the Gemara, Hahu de Rabbe, that which he learned until now, that he learns out from Miluim, both things, that was his Rebbe, not he himself. He was saying in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, La'asois Elu Maise Parah. That's referring to the Parah Aduma. Lechaper Elu Maise Yom Kippurim. That's referring to Yom Kippurim. So that was Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yochanan himself learns like a different Tana, that indeed it's only one limud, and that is we learn Yom Kippurim from Miluim. Omar le Reish Lakish le Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish now turns to Rabbi Yochanan, who only learns one and not both. Mehecha kol yalfis lo. From where do you even learn your limud that Yom Kippurim is learned out from Miluim? He says, Mi Miluim. Ima Miluim kol hakosuf. Bohen ma'akev bohen. By Miluim, whatever is written in Miluim is ma'akev. If you don't do it, then it's going to hold back the avodah. It'll be poisil. Then so too, whatever you're learning out also has to be that whatever is written, whatever is done by Miluim has to be done by them too, and will be ma'akev. And you'll say that's true. Indeed, that would be the limud. Whatever is true by Miluim and is ma'akev would also be true by Yom Kippurim as well. But yet it states in our Mishnah, umaskinin loy kohen acher v'loy ktani mafrishin. It says we prepare for him a second kohen gadol, but it doesn't say we separate him. And indeed, by the Miluim, there's a requirement to separate. So if indeed the kohen gadol finds a psul, let's say he sees Keri, and he can't do the avodah because he's pasul, so we have a second coin in his place, but that second coin, it doesn't say that he was separated for 7 days. So that would mean that would ma'akiv the avodah. It wouldn't be a good, valid avodah. But if you'll say, when it says we prepare, we're maskinim, we also separated him, that's what it means. Ask the Gemara, then listni, Oy idi v'idi maskinin, or idi id mafrishin, that you have to be consistent. Teach either or, that they're both maskinin, or they're both mafrishin. The very fact that it says that the Kohen Gadol himself, we are mafrishim, and then it says by the Kohen Acher, it says that we're maskinin, is mashma that maskin is not mafrishin, and therefore we don't separate him. Omar le. So Rabbi Yochanan does not respond what his answer is. L'chara Rabbi Yochanan will say, but that's not ma'akev when it comes to the Yom Kippurim. Omar lei, but Rabbi Yochanan does then turn to Reish Lakish and he says, Elamar mehecha yaliflo. How would then you learn? Omar, he says, mi Sinai. I learn out from Sinai. This is what he says to Rabbi Yochanan. Dichsiv, it says by Sinai, by Yishkoin, Kavoid Hashem al Har Sinai. Hashem's glory rested on the mountain of Sinai. Vayichaseyu ha'onin sheishes yomim. And the cloud covered the mountain for 6 days. Vayikra el Moshe bayom hashvi. And the Shekhinah called out to Moshe on the 7th day. Michti. The Gemara says, let's see. Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Vayikra el Moshe bayom hashvi. The Hashem called out to Moshe on the 7th day. My sheishes yomim. Why does it mention that there are 6 days that the anan, that the cloud covered the har? Zebona av shekol hanichnas b'machane shechina ton precious shisha. This comes to teach us a principle as a binyan av, that whoever is going to then go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he must separate 6 days. So too over here comes out that indeed that's where we know that Yom Kippur he has to separate 6 days before. Ask the Gemara the obvious question: V'ho anan shivatnan. But our Mishnah says that the Kohen Gadol has to separate 7 days. So therefore, how can this be a precedent when it's only 6 days? Answers the Gemara: Masnisin Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirahi. Our Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. The Chayish, who's concerned on top of Dalet Amud Aleph, Letumas Beisoy. He's worried that although one separates for 6 days, but there's a greater requirement, because if a Kohen Gadol was with his wife and found out that she was in Nida at that time, then he would be Tamei for 7 days, and therefore there's an extra requirement to separate, to be segregated, to be sequestered 7 days before Yom HaKippurim, and therefore we can't rely only on the 6 days, because over here we have to add an additional day in the event that perhaps she was in Nida.